Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where at last we are taking a look and reviewing Shining Force 3 Part 2. Now if you didn't know, it takes place simultaneously to Part 1 but from the Median army's point of view for the Imperials, whereas Part 1 was the Symbiote army for the Republicans. Now also as well, this game obviously originally didn't come out in English, it was Japan only. Unfortunately in this current age we are able to play the fan translated version, which is fantastic because it means we can play the whole 3 games in the Shining Force 3 series now, and without a doubt this one is just as epic as the first. Starts off with a fantastic FMV intro video, just as good as the first one. Really sets the scene, just as epic and dramatic. It's really what you want at the start of an RPG, so it really does set you up for a fantastic gaming experience right from the get-go. So if you're unaware of the story, now hopefully you've seen my first video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about the story because it's exactly the same as the first game, but from the Median army point of view. You believe that the Emperor has been kidnapped at the start of the game by the Republicans. You're trying to find out what's going on and you're following them around, basically traveling around the world just like in the first game but from the different perspective. Now the great thing about this is that yes, some of the game is the same, but from different points of view, but then big chunks of the game, different locations and everything, and we'll get into that. But storyline-wise, again, it's fantastic. There's a big plus point for the Shining Force 3 series is the fantastic story. Really interesting. So many different characters as well, and they all have unique attributes in the way that you get to know them, basically, throughout the adventures. So the game is set up in exactly the same way as the previous game, same game engine for the towns and everything, same controls, same battle system and everything. It's all just with different characters from the different point of view, the Median army, and it's basically just, it flows fantastically well because you can go straight from one game to play in the other, and it's just a seemingly, you know, perfect transition from one game to the next. What I am going to talk about mainly is the slight improvements that we get in Shining Force 3 Part 2. Now, as you can see, the graphic engine for towns and the world map is identical. There is nothing at all different about it. The sprites of the characters are still quite low quality, but the 3D engine is exactly the same. There's nothing different whatsoever about the 3D engine in any aspects of the game. The improvements are pretty much all in battle, really, if I'm honest, and there's a few, and they're basically very minor additions and improvements in the game. One of them is you'll notice when you do special attacks, there is more animation to them, more special effects to give them that more dramatic feel that was kind of a bit barren and not really with it in the first game. The second improvement you will notice is the graphical detail in characters and enemies. I feel has improved for this game. Now obviously it came out about 6 months after the first one. Off the top of my head, I think it's about 6 months after the first one in Japan, and they've actually used that time to actually improve the graphics slightly. Like I said, the sprites of the characters I still don't think they're very good. I think I commented in the first game that games like Grandia and Dark Savior had better character models for the world maps and the towns and stuff, and I still stand by that now. It's not a deal breaker because it's still a fantastic game. Other than that, there's a few new tracks for different locations. There's not too many new locations in the game, but there are a few. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how many, but as you play the game, you get to see that anyway, and enjoy the few additions to the soundtracks as well. But in terms of what's new, that's it really. It's basically just a carrying on the game from the Medium viewpoint and new additions storyline wise. So much like the first game, really, the main bulk of gameplay is in the battles, and like I said in the first game, the battle system for Shining Force 3 is fantastic. It's probably one of my favourite battle systems in any RPGs, really, to be honest. Yes, it's a strategic style battling RPG system, but I really like it. I think it's really good. It gives you a chance to level up the characters how you want to, based on each one getting more XP if they get the killing blow and stuff. So it's good. If you've got characters who are left behind, you can eventually catch them up. This one's got a much better dungeon at the end of the game as well for leveling your characters. So I really found that leveling your whole team up is easier on this game, and it's more enjoyable as well than it was on part 1. So I think they looked at that, and that's a definite improvement. Something else as well, the characters on this game, you feel more of a bond with every single character on this game. And I pointed out in the first one that some of the characters you got just felt they'd just been chucked into your party to give you another body, whereas everybody in part 2, you actually feel like they are genuinely part of your team, or certainly I did anyway. And I didn't have that feeling in part 1, which meant some characters I wasn't bothered about leveling them up. Whereas on this game, at the end of the game, I actually wanted to level up all the characters to a decent level, because I actually enjoyed doing that. And that using the last dungeon on this game was really, really good for doing that. And it was definitely a plus and an enjoyable part of the game for myself. Now you'll probably notice I'm not really talking in terms of the review how I usually would, break it down into graphics, sound, gameplay, lifespan. I don't really think that's necessary, because all of the great things that were applicable to the first game in the series apply to this one, and they're just some slight improvements in terms of graphics and a few more music tracks, really. Gameplay as well plays exactly the same, which is great. I don't have any faults with the way that it plays. Lifespan as well, really similar to the first one, probably about 40 hours of solid gameplay if you level up all your characters. There's not really anything bad I can say about Shining Force 3 Part 2, if I'm perfectly honest. If you've not played it, if you've not played the first one, if you've not played any of them, I would really, really recommend you go and do it, because I feel there's not many RPGs like this now, and I'm playing Part 3 currently at the moment, and it's still so appealing, it's still so good to play, that it doesn't matter that the game's over 20 years old to me. There's this feeling that it's unique, and it's had a lot of effort put into the storyline and stuff, and I just feel some modern games don't have that specific feeling that you're playing something that's had a lot of care and a lot of thought put into the storyline, because the storyline of Shining Force 3 is intricate, it's detailed, someone's really thought about this and sprawled out 3 massive games because of that, and I really think you have to respect that quality. Like I said, with the first game, I spoke about a couple of reviews of it. It got 70% in Games Master, I think, and then it got 4 out of 5 in CVG. Now, obviously, I've not seen a review for this because I didn't look them up, basically. There are no Japanese, I can't read Japanese, so I don't really need to do that to tell you that this game is brilliant. This game's fantastic. At the time of me playing this, it was the best game that I had played on my Saturn. Obviously, I said this in part 1, there's still so many Saturn games I need to play, really, and I'm playing part 3 at the moment, and it's just as good as part 2. So they are just fantastic games in general, and obviously I'll be covering more games as we go along, and obviously this isn't even one of the PAL games, so I shouldn't even really be reviewing it, but because the game's so good, I just couldn't resist. I really do recommend that you go and play it. You need to play the first one first, play this one, then play the third one, because quite frankly they're essential Saturn games to play. There's no ifs, no buts. If you own a Saturn and you're a great Sega fan and you love your Saturn, then you need to do it yourself. You know, treat yourself and play all of these 3 epic games. End of story. Now, that was Shining Force 3 Part 2. Now, I've obviously got this box set, a reproduction one, which comes with all the games together, and I really think that is the way to go. If you like collecting physical copies, then you can get these from
various places on the internet, reproduction games, and they're really good. So Shining Force 3 Part 2, I haven't really got anything negative to say about it. It's a fantastic game, really enjoyable RPG, and I really recommend if you're a true Saturn fan and you're watching this, then you'll have already played it. But if you haven't, go and play the first one, then play the second one, and play the third one as well, because you'll be doing yourself a favor. Absolute fact. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for a Saturn review. Goodbye for now.